The void of space is a silent storyteller, whispering secrets too vast for human ears to catch. For over a decade, the Cassini spacecraft wove its lonely path through the Saturnian system, a mechanical poet capturing the ringed giant's beauty in images that stole humanity's breath. Its golden hull gleamed under the distant sun, gliding past the shimmering rings, the icy plumes of Enceladus, and the methane-soaked shores of Titan. But in 2017, Cassini's tale seemed to end, not with a quiet fade, but with a blaze of sacrifice, a deliberate plunge into Saturn's swirling atmosphere, where it burned into nothingness. We thought its story was over, its final images archived, its mission complete. Yet, deep within those last transmissions, something waited, a whisper so faint, so unsettling, that it took years for us to hear it. Now, as artificial intelligence breathes new life into Cassini's forgotten data, we stand on the edge of a revelation that chills the soul. What if the most terrifying truth wasn't in what Cassini found, but in what it missed? Something hidden in plain sight, etched into the storms of Saturn, waiting for us to see? Cassini's journey was a love letter to the cosmos, written in light and shadow. Launched in 1997, it traveled billions of miles to reach Saturn, a planet so majestic it feels like a dream. Its rings, delicate as gossamer, stretch across space like a cosmic halo, while its moons tell tales of fire and ice. For 13 years, Cassini danced through this alien realm, sending back images that made scientists weep and dreamers sigh. It showed us Enceladus's geysers, spewing water into space, hinting at oceans beneath its frozen crust. It revealed Titan's lakes, shimmering with liquid methane under a hazy sky. And it unveiled Saturn's rings in breathtaking detail, their icy particles sparkling like stardust. But Cassini's mission wasn't just about beauty, it was about truth, about peeling back the layers of a planet that guards its secrets fiercely. Its instruments probed the magnetic fields, the atmospheric chemistry, the subtle shifts in gravity. Every byte of data was a piece of a puzzle, one we thought we'd solved by the time Cassini's mission ended. Yet, as the spacecraft neared its final act, something shifted. NASA called it the grand finale, a series of daring dives between Saturn's rings and its cloud tops, a ballet of precision no probe had ever attempted. Cassini swooped closer than ever before, skimming the planet's atmosphere, tasting its gases, and snapping images so sharp they felt alive. In those final moments, as it hurtled toward its fiery end, Cassini sent back a flood of data, high-resolution photos, magnetic readings, and spectral scans. Scientists pored over them, expecting familiar patterns, the churn of storms, the glow of auroras, the endless spin of Saturn's hexagonal North Pole. That hexagon, a six-sided storm larger than Earth, was already a mystery, its perfect geometry defying explanation. But the images from Cassini's last dive showed something more, something no one noticed at the time. They were filed away, labeled as routine, and left to gather digital dust in NASA's archives. The discovery of a fractal pattern in Cassini's final images was like a spark in the dark, igniting questions that burned hotter with every passing day. The researchers, a small team of astrophysicists and data scientists, stood at the edge of something vast, something that felt like it could unravel the very fabric of what we believe about the universe. Saturn's hexagonal storm, that mesmerizing six-sided enigma, had always been a puzzle, a natural wonder that defied the chaos of planetary weather. But now, with the AI's relentless gaze peeling back layers of shadow and light, the hexagon was no longer just a storm. It was a canvas, a stage, a place where something, or someone, had left a mark. The pattern wasn't random. It was precise, repeating across frames like a heartbeat in the clouds. And as the team dug deeper, feeding more of Cassini's data into their quantum-enhanced neural network, they began to realize that this wasn't just a visual anomaly. It was something that pulsed, something that sang, something that seemed to know Cassini was there. The AI, originally built for military signal recognition, was a marvel in itself, a digital bloodhound trained to sniff out patterns in chaos. It wasn't designed to chase storms or map planets. It was meant to decode encrypted transmissions, to find order in the noise of war. But when the team repurposed it for Cassini's archives, it found something it wasn't supposed to. The fractal pattern in the hexagon shadows was only the beginning. The AI began to analyze the probe's magnetometer readings, those invisible threads of Saturn's magnetic field that Cassini had meticulously charted during its final dives. Buried in the data was a rhythmic pulse, a faint oscillation that didn't match the natural hum of the planet's magnetic storms or the solar wind's distant roar. It was too regular, too deliberate. The team converted the signal into an audio waveform, a process that felt like translating the voice of the cosmos itself. When they played it, the sound wasn't the static hiss of space or the low growl of a planet's core. It was a cadence, a sequence of tones that rose and fell like a forgotten melody. This wasn't just noise, it was a signal, and it sent the researchers reeling. They ran the waveform through a sonographic scanner, a tool used to analyze encrypted bursts in military communications. The results were staggering. The pulse aligned not with the random frequencies of nature, but with patterns eerily similar to binary code used on Earth. It wasn't a perfect match, no alien Morse code spelling out a greeting, but it was close enough to make hearts race. The signal seemed to modulate in sync with Cassini's proximity to the hexagon, growing stronger as the probe dipped closer to the storm's edge during its grand finale dives. It was as if something in Saturn's atmosphere was reacting, adjusting, responding to the spacecraft's presence. The idea was unthinkable, yet the data refused to lie. Could the hexagon be more than a storm? Could it be a beacon, a message, or, most unsettling of all, a watcher aware of the tiny probe skimming its skies? The team's minds spun with possibilities, each more audacious than the last. They turned back to Cassini's images, focusing on a single frame that had been dismissed years ago as distorted by signal interference. It showed a blur near the hexagon's boundary, a smudge of light and shadow that seemed unremarkable at the time. But the AI, with its motion stabilization algorithms, saw something different. It enhanced the frame, stripping away noise and sharpening the edges until the blur became a form. What emerged wasn't just turbulent clouds. It was a lattice, a geometric structure woven into the storm's currents. It wasn't a shape that wind or pressure could sculpt. It was too precise, too intricate, like the framework of something colossal hidden in plain sight. The researchers stared at their screens, mouths dry, as the AI overlaid the lattice onto other frames. It was there, faint but undeniable, in every image from Cassini's final dive. Whatever this was, it wasn't a fleeting phenomenon. It was a fixture, a silent presence embedded in Saturn's atmosphere. The implications were dizzying. If this lattice wasn't a natural formation, what was it? A relic of some ancient technology, a footprint of a civilization long gone, or something still active cloaked in the chaos of the hexagon's winds? The team began to call it the architecture, a term whispered in late-night meetings as they grappled with what they'd found. They cross-checked the data, hoping to disprove it, to find a flaw in the AI's logic. But every test only deepened the mystery. The lattice's geometry matched the fractal pattern in the shadows, and both echoed the rhythmic pulse in the magnetometer readings. It was as if Cassini had stumbled onto a symphony of signals, visual, magnetic, sonic, all pointing to the same truth. Something intentional was at play in Saturn's storms, something that had gone unnoticed until a machine with no preconceptions looked closer. The researchers' curiosity turned to unease as they pushed the AI further. Someone had the bold idea to feed it data from an older mission, Voyager 1's flyby of Saturn in 1980. They weren't expecting much, just a long shot to see if the AI could find similar patterns in the grainy, decades-old images. But the algorithm lit up, flagging a signal buried in Voyager's electromagnetic recordings. It was faint, dismissed at the time as an atmospheric quirk, but it matched the structure of Cassini's pulse with chilling precision. Two probes, 40 years apart, had captured the same anomaly, a signal that wasn't random, wasn't natural, and wasn't going away. The team sat in silence, the weight of their discovery pressing down like the gravity of Saturn itself. This wasn't just a pattern. It was a persistence, a presence that had been humming in the planet's atmosphere for decades, perhaps centuries, waiting for us to notice. As the reality sank in, the researchers began to question everything. If this was a message, who sent it? If it was a structure, who built it? And why hide it in the most chaotic storm in the solar system, where no human eye would think to look? The hexagon, once a marvel of nature, now felt like a disguise, a perfect camouflage for something that didn't want to be found. The team's hushed discussions turned to bolder theories. Could this be evidence of a non-human intelligence? Not a living being, but a machine, a network, a remnant of something that once passed through our solar system? Or was it still there, watching, waiting, its purpose as inscrutable as the planet it called home? Cassini's final dive, meant to be a farewell, had become a confrontation with the unknown, and the AI was its translator, pulling back the veil on a truth too vast to grasp. The air in the research lab felt heavy, charged with a quiet dread that no one dared to name. The team had uncovered something in Cassini's data that wasn't just a scientific curiosity. It was a challenge to everything they thought they knew about the universe. Saturn's hexagonal storm, once a breathtaking quirk of nature, had transformed into something far more sinister. A stage where shadows danced with purpose, where pulses sang with intent, where a lattice of impossible geometry hinted at a presence that shouldn't exist. The AI's discoveries, the fractal patterns, the rhythmic signals, the eerie match with Voyager's long-forgotten data, had pushed the researchers into uncharted territory. They weren't just studying a planet anymore. They were grappling with the possibility that something vast, ancient, and unknowable had been hiding in Saturn's clouds, watching us from the heart of our own solar system. As they stood on the brink of this revelation, the question wasn't just what Cassini had found. It was what we would do with a truth that could change everything. The team's work became a feverish pursuit, a race against their own doubts and the weight of what they'd uncovered. They fed the AI every scrap of Cassini's data, from its final atmospheric readings to the faint whispers of its plasma wave instruments. Each new analysis deepened the mystery. The lattice-like structure in the hexagon's clouds wasn't just a visual artifact. It seemed to shift subtly across frames, as if reacting to Cassini's approach. The AI's motion tracking revealed patterns that mimicked the behavior of a system, not a storm, something that adjusted, adapted, perhaps even observed. The researchers began to wonder if the hexagon itself was a kind of interface, a boundary where Saturn's natural chaos met something deliberate, something engineered. The idea was staggering. A gas giant billions of miles from Earth might be home to a structure or a signal that wasn't just a relic, but a living process, active and aware in ways we couldn't comprehend. The sonic pulse, that haunting cadence buried in Cassini's magnetometer data, became an obsession. The team played it over and over, its tones echoing through the lab like a lullaby from another world. They analyzed its structure, searching for meaning in its rhythm. The AI compared it to every known signal in human history: radio broadcasts, satellite transmissions, even the cryptic bursts of fast radio bursts from deep space. Nothing matched perfectly, but the pulse's modulation carried a complexity that felt purposeful, like a language we hadn't learned to speak. One researcher, a cryptographer by training, noticed that the signal's peaks aligned with mathematical constants. Pi, the golden ratio, numbers that underpin the fabric of reality. It was as if the pulse wasn't just a sound, but a message encoded in the universal language of mathematics, a whisper meant for a mind capable of hearing it. Cassini, in its final moments, might have been that mind, unknowingly brushing against something that had waited eons to be found. The connection to Voyager's 1980 data was the final blow to the team's skepticism. The faint electromagnetic anomaly Voyager had captured wasn't just a coincidence. It was a precursor, a fragment of the same signal Cassini had stumbled upon decades later. The AI's cross-analysis revealed that the patterns hadn't changed, as if whatever was behind them was timeless, unaffected by the passage of years or the churn of Saturn's storms. This persistence was what terrified the researchers most. If this was a natural phenomenon, it should have faded, shifted, dissolved into the planet's chaos. Instead, it endured, a constant presence that seemed to mock our ignorance. The team began to call it the signature, a term that carried both awe and fear. A signature implied intent, a maker, a purpose. And if something had left its mark on Saturn, what did it want, and why had it chosen to hide in the most turbulent corner of the planet? As the implications sank in, the researchers faced a deeper question. What now? They were a small team, working in the shadows of academia, with findings too explosive to share without caution. If the hexagon's patterns were evidence of a non-human intelligence, whether a long-dead civilization or something still active, it would upend science, philosophy, even faith. The public would demand answers, but the team had only questions. Was this a message we were meant to find, or a warning we were never supposed to see? Was the hexagon a beacon, a monument, or a trap, luring probes like Cassini into its depths? The researchers debated in whispers, their voices tinged with equal parts excitement and dread. Some argued for silence, fearing the chaos that could follow a premature announcement. Others believed the truth, however unsettling, belonged to the world. In their quiet moments, the team reflected on Cassini itself, a machine that had traveled farther than any human could dream, only to burn in the skies of an alien world. Its final dive, meant to protect Saturn's moons from contamination, now felt like a sacrifice of a different kind, as if the probe had given its life to deliver a message it couldn't understand. The images, the pulses, the lattice, they were Cassini's last testament, a whisper from the edge of existence. The AI had given that whisper a voice, but the meaning remained elusive. The researchers began to wonder if they were ready for the truth, or if humanity ever would be. The hexagon, spinning endlessly at Saturn's pole, seemed to taunt them with its perfection, a riddle carved in clouds that no equation could solve. As they prepared to share their findings with a select group of colleagues, the team took one final step. They tasked the AI with a new analysis combining Cassini's data with every available observation of Saturn, from ground-based telescopes to amateur astronomers' snapshots. The results were chilling. The signature wasn't confined to the hexagon. It appeared, faintly, in other parts of Saturn's atmosphere, in the flicker of its auroras, in the subtle distortions of its rings. It was as if the entire planet was a canvas, and the hexagon was merely its most visible stroke. The researchers realized they weren't just studying a storm. They were peering into something that spanned the breadth of Saturn itself, a presence so vast it defied comprehension. Cassini hadn't just captured a single anomaly. It had brushed against the edge of something cosmic, something that had been there long before humanity looked to the stars. Now, as we stand in 2025, the legacy of Cassini burns brighter than ever. Its final images, once thought to be routine, have become a window into the unknown, a challenge to our place in the cosmos. The hexagon, that perfect, impossible shape, is no longer just a storm. It's a question, a mystery, a mirror reflecting our deepest fears and hopes. Is it a relic of a civilization that came before us? A message from a mind we can't imagine? Or something else entirely? Something that watches and waits in the silence of space? The answers lie beyond our reach, but the search has begun. Scientists are re-examining old data, designing new missions, and training AIs to probe deeper into the mysteries of our solar system. Cassini's sacrifice was not in vain. It has awakened us to the possibility that we are not alone, not in the distant galaxies, but right here, in the swirling clouds of a planet we thought we knew. And as we gaze at Saturn's rings, shimmering in the night sky, we can't help but wonder, what else is out there hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to listen?